Hey guys, my name is Alex and thank you very much for stopping by. Really appreciate your visit. And this is the coding challenge number 1. So we are going to solve 30 coding challenges in Ruby in the next 30 days. So that's a great challenge and see where it goes. And to be honest, this is the easiest challenge, and don't be mad at me, please, because we're going to solve harder or maybe better problems along the way. But today is just about stretching your arms and legs to the run, so this will be quite simple. And we're gonna solve this problem in Ruby, and you will see that we have this kind of simple way to solve the problem, but by the end of the video you will see that we have a Ruby way or a Rubyish way to solve the problem. So stay at the end and you will see how we will solve that. And I'm going to use this my iPad and my Apple Pencil because when it comes to algorithms and problems, I think that's easier to show you than just to tell you and show you the code. So let me know in the comments below if this is valuable or not. Now let's talk about the problem. The problem will be quite simple. As I said before, just to stretch our legs and arms. The problem is, given an array, I just want to count how many items are greater than 5. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Don't be mad at me. So let's go to the iPad and I just want to first of all solve the logic, which will be simple, and then we will translate this logic to code. And right after that, let's use a more Ruby way to solve this problem. So that's it. So given an array, let's create an array here, a simple array. And an array is just a collection of numbers, a collection of strings, a collection of something. So in this case, I'm going to create a collection of numbers. So the first number will be maybe 17, the second one will be 6, the third one will be 3, and we have 7 and 9 and 1. So that's it. That's our array and a collection, just a collection of numbers. And then what I want to do is I want to count how many items are greater than 5. So just to remember the number that we are comparing to, let's put the number 5 here. And now, in order to solve this problem, let's do a simple thing. The first thing is, I'm going to change my color here. Let's go and go through the whole array, the entire array, and just ask if the number is greater than 5 or not. So, hey 17, hey first number, are you greater than 5? And yes, he is. So what we can do here is I can just have this kind of variable where I can keep the number of items that I'm finding that are that are greater than 5. So I'm going to create here, let's change the color again. I'm going to create this count variable that starts at 0, and I'm going to change that every time that I have a number greater than 5. So what happens here is that now 17 is greater than 5. I'm going to replace this 0 and I will plus 1. So 0 plus 1. Hey, let's ask for the second element in the array. Hey, are you greater than 5? Yes, I am. So let's replace the count variable and plus 1 instead of 1, 2. Hey, are you greater than 5? No, I'm not. So that's it. Let's go to the next one and you can ask again. Hey, are you greater than 5? Yes, I am. Let's change 2 and plus 1, 3. Are you greater than 5? Yes, I am. Let's change again. 3 and plus 1, 4. Are you greater than 5? No, I'm not. So that's it. That's really simple. You just go through the whole array and then for each number you ask if the number is greater than or not. And if the number is greater than 5, you can just plus 1 in your count variable. That's it. That's quite simple. I know that, again, as I said before, please don't be mad at me. But now I just want to solve this problem with Ruby. So let's go to the code, and please let your comment below if this is something that is valuable or not. And of course, for this problem, will not be valuable, but maybe for harder problems, you know, it could be better. So let's go straight to the online compiler, where again, as I said before, you don't need to have a Ruby environment. Let's just do it online. Here we go. As you can see, I'm using this Repoit, which is a website where you have this Ruby online compiler, and to be honest, you can use other languages, that's great, and you don't need to have this Ruby environment on your machine, so that's amazing. And what I want to do is I want to translate the things that we were doing here to Ruby. This will be really simple. So I'm going to create this array variable, you know, just to store my array, and I'm going to copy it, 17 and the 6 and 3 and the 7 and 9 and 1. That's it. 17, 6, 3, 7, 9, 1. Perfect. And now I have this number, which is my variable, where I can just store the number that I want to compare. And then I have this count variable that starts at 0 because I just want to calculate, you know, how many items are greater than 5. And now that's the moment where I want to go through the array to all of the elements in this array. And I can do that with a classic for loop expression. So if you're coming from other crazy language, you know what is a for loop expression. How can we create a for loop expression in Ruby? Well, I can just say for each item in my array, I want to do something, and that's it. So this is plain English, you know, you can understand that. I'm using this and keyword just to finish this block, this kind of block. And then for each item in my array, I want to ask question, and you can ask questions with a if condition. So we have if my item is greater than 5, I want to do something. Again, I'm using and just to finish this block. And what I want to do here, I want to calculate. What I can do is I will say, hey, count, please take your current number and plus 1. So when you do that, you will calculate each time that you have this number. That's quite simple, right? Cool. Now the next step is printing out this value, you know, the count value on the console, so we can see if we are doing something right or not. So let's see, if we're coming from JavaScript, what's the best way to debug things? Of course, with console.log. If you're coming from Java, you probably use system out println. If you're coming from, you know, Python, you can use print. You know, you got it. The way that you can do that in Ruby is using puts and my variable count. That's it. So I'm going to run this. Let's execute and let's see. Yes, it's working. So we have 4. Amazing. That's the first way to solve this problem. Note this is really simple. Now, let's organize the kitchen a little bit by creating a method. And probably you can just stop watching right now because I just want to organize things a little bit, because I want to have a little bit more a way to reuse this code, you know, because you have a lot of fixed things. So I just want to create a Ruby method. So how can you define a new Ruby method? Let's use the def your method name. Again, Ruby is amazing. I love Ruby. And you can say, hey, def name, let's create one called how many items are greater than, and the number that you want to compare, which is number. I'm going to receive a number as an argument. And then here you go, we have this new method. Now what I want to do is I want to just take this piece of code and let's put it here. Okay, now it's better. And then this is a method, so I just want to return the count variable. And let's put all of these things below. Awesome. Now let's replace the count variable here with the method that I'm using. And I'm going to pass the number 5. Let's remove this because I don't think that is helpful. And you can just do that. So if you execute, okay, that's terrible. You are using an array outside of this method, which means that you have probably two options. The first one, you can just take this array and you can insert inside your method, and you can do that the same thing with the count variable. That's one way. Let's see if it's working. Yes, it's working. Or if you want, you can just use this array outside, and now you can reuse your method a little bit better and use that array as an argument. So this method takes one array as an argument. If you want to execute this, let's see. Here you go, it's working. And just a tip here, Ruby doesn't require parentheses. So if you execute this again, hopefully this will, yes, it works. And this sounds a little bit weird if you're coming from a language that uses a lot of parentheses, but it's a good way, to just be a little bit more, clean. So the next step now is to solve this in a more Ruby way, a Rubish way. So we have a few languages, programming languages like Ruby and Go and Clojure that have this kind of strong opinions, on how you should do things. And Ruby is one of these languages. So if we are solving one problem, one great exercise is to think if Ruby solves that problem in a specific way, in a more opinionated way. Let's explore this right now. To solve this problem in a more Rubish way, I just want to use my iPad again just to show you the problem, and please again drop your comment below if this is valid or not. What I want to do is I want to say that an array in Ruby, this is an array. Let's create this array. I'm going to change this color a little bit. So this is the array in Ruby. I can't spell array. And this is an array, and now what happens is that Ruby has a count number provided by this array, which means that you can just call dot and count, which is a method in this array. And what happens is that this count is amazing because you can create a block in Ruby. A block in Ruby, just changing the color again, a block in Ruby is something that you can create a method and expression to be evaluated here. So what happens is that, I'm going to change the color again, you say array dot count, and you can say do, which is a keyword, and then you have this item. Let's change the color again, and you have terrible, and you have, okay, I can't change colors here, and you have this item. And the amazing thing about this process is that now you have this block, you will create your expression here, and the amazing thing is that the for loop expression will be executed automatically, and you can just say, hey count, please just validate if the item here is greater than 5, which is amazing. Now what happens, again, just to stress this enough, let me change this color. Now what happens is that this expression will be evaluated for each item that you have in your array, and Ruby automatically will create this for loop expression internally, which is great. You don't need to worry about creating this for loop expression. So this is a more declarative approach. And then you are declaring, hey Ruby, please, I just want to get all of the items that are greater than 5. And Ruby will say, hey, don't worry, I'm going to validate each item here, and for each item, I'm going to store internally the result. And after the after ending the array, Ruby will return the count that was calculated internally, which is great. So let's translate it to Ruby, and actually this is a Ruby syntax, so I just want to type this here. Okay, now what happens is that, first of all, let's another Ruby tip here. You don't need to use return. That's great. And let's remove this one and say, let's remove the count variable, which is great because now you don't have to have a count variable to count the numbers. You will say, hey array, please count every item in my array, and for each item evaluate if the item is greater than 5. Remarkable. And what happens is that if you execute this, as you can see, it's working. If you don't believe me, if you want to put an array and return keyword here, you will see that this block will iterate over the array and then return the calculation. So let's execute this code again. And here you go. So it's working. Again, this is a more Ruby-ish way to solve problems, which is great. So again, as I said before, Ruby is a more opinionated programming language. And that's it. So I hope you like it, and see you tomorrow in the next coding challenge. I think that, and again, how many items? I don't know if what's